The most undervalued and underused resource are lecture outcomes, in my opinion. Let me explain how these can really boost your learning and studying. My name's Dr. Suzanne Fergus. I'm a lecturer and learning coach, and I've written a book called Study Smarter. Lecture outcomes tend to be presented as a list of bullet points at the beginning of a lesson or a lecture. Who actually reads them? They focus on what that lecture or lesson sets out to achieve, and they're also what's assessed. So you could think of them a bit like a syllabus. Here's how to turn lecture outcomes into a brilliant learning resource. Questions lead to learning. Questions get us to think, so turn the lecture outcomes into questions, and you then have a way of testing your own learning. You can include these questions in your notes as recap questions, and they help to prime your brain before reviewing a lecture as to what exactly are the priorities. Here are some examples from my own lectures where I teach chemistry. This first lecture outcome, understand nomenclature and properties of alcohols. There's two things involved in this outcome, and the focus is for my students to understand them. So the first one, nomenclature, which is the naming of alcohols. A great way to test understanding is, can you explain this as if you were teaching another student, or explain it in your own words? So explain how to name alcohols and draw some examples. The second outcome, what are the main properties of alcohol? So again, turning this into a question. Can my students answer what are the main properties of alcohols? That's also understanding the properties, which is exactly what this outcome is asking for. The second lecture outcome, determine dehydration product. In any lecture outcome, you can have multiple questions. So you can start at some more basic level, foundation level questions. So in the case here, there's a technical term used in the outcome. What is dehydration? My students have to really understand that before they can determine the dehydration product. So then what happens in the dehydration of alcohols? Again, explain the key steps, because to determine or work out or solve the product, they've got to be able to know and understand what happens in that reaction. Use examples and solve, and they can use examples that we've gone through in tutorials, or use their own examples and solve them. The third outcome here, properties of ethers. Again, what is an ether? My students need to know this. So you can ask questions that are more fundamental, draw the structure of an ether, and then to be able to turn properties of ethers into a question. Again, what are the main properties of ethers? So turn lecture outcomes into questions. This is such a valuable way to create questions that you can use in your learning, because questions lead to learning, and you then have this valuable resource that not only focuses on exactly what you have to make a priority from a lecture, but you now have these tools that you can use in your revision, to prime your brain, and just to help in your own testing of learning.